So the world ended 800 years ago, but really, when has that ever stopped anyone? Civilization has rebuilt, it's getting its footing back, there are a lot of interesting lands to explore, and by the way, you don't have a heart, you have a crystal in your chest. And if you're playing an Agent of Sin, you can actually change what crystal resides in your chest, and it's going to give you amazing new powers to experiment with. Pique your interest? Let's find out more. All right, I am joined here today by Eran and Aviv, and they are doing and talking about the Crystal Heart Kickstarter for the Savage Worlds setting. Of course, you know that this is mainly a Savage Worlds channel, so what am I even talking about? But if you know this show, then you know I like to get into a bit of background about the people I am interviewing. So, Eran, Aviv, thank you very much for being here on the show. I'm probably butchering your names horribly, and I apologize for that. So if you could just tell us a bit about yourself. What do you do when you're not gaming, when you're not designing games? I guess we'll just go with ladies first.
First of all, you're not slaughtering anything. Pronunciation really nice. Hi, my name is Aviv. I'm an illustrator mainly, which is pretty much all I do other than playing games. I draw stuff. I work for board games and role-playing games mainly. I did art for Thornwatch that was recently released, and I'm working on the Good Society RPG, an RPG based on Jane Austen's novel, which is really exciting. Other than that, I also draw other stuff. That's basically all I do.
Yeah, I've seen the stuff you do for Critical Role, your fan art. That was amazing. I probably saw it on the show when they show the fan art, and I didn't recognize your name, but now I sure will. All right, Eran, what about you?
Hello, I'm Eran. Eran, it doesn't matter. I'm like Aviv, originally from Israel, but on me you can actually tell because of the accent. And I work mainly as a game editor. I used to be a translator for basically every role-playing game to Hebrew. And now that I no longer live in Israel, I edit stuff instead. I have a podcast that I've been editing for a long time. I have websites that I edit. I edit Savage World products. I make sure that the content that a person creates is actually says the thing they want it to say. That's my job description.
So making sure that the correct message gets across and nothing gets lost in translation.
The thing that the thing that the creator, the writer, the whatever wanted the receiver to experience. That's the thing, and that requires a lot of, because I work in gaming, a lot of game design as well.
Cool. Yeah, that's something I can relate to. I've done some work. I started out doing work in German, and then I switched over to English, and that can be a tricky thing. So yeah, very interesting. So if people haven't judged by the really cool names already, so both of you guys are Israeli. So Yuri is also the guy you do your podcast with, and he does he also live in England?
No, Uri Lifshitz, the famed Lifshitz, lives in Israel. And we only started doing the podcast. I mean, both us and Aviv and other friends played together D&D 4 for a long time. And then when Aviv and I moved away, I started, before Aviv moved away, when I moved away, it was 6 or 7 years ago, I really wanted to still do something in Hebrew about role-playing games. So Uri and I started this podcast. We've done by now about 300 episodes. And I think maybe twice we're in the same room, because most of the time we are continents apart.
Wow, yeah, that is something I can relate to as somebody who's done a podcast with guys from Canada, the UK, and the US. Yes. So yeah, I know that feeling. So how did both of you end up? You both ended up in England. So was that a plan to just move there together? Even though I know you, maybe the audience doesn't, but I know you moved there 2 years apart. So was that just a coincidence?
I moved first because my wife took me there. She did her doctorate in urban fantasy, specifically in London, and how, not Richard Dawkins, how Dickens basically created the subgenre of urban fantasy. And she shows through various authors all the way how London reflects and stuff like that. And it's awesome, but you really should do it while in London. So we moved to London, and that's the thing. And then Aviv came because she will say.
I've always loved London, and I've always wanted to live in London. And Ev, my husband, wanted to live somewhere other than Israel, to try it out, basically. And we had an opportunity to either move to London or to Amsterdam. And the fact that Eran and Dasi were already living in London was a big factor in us deciding to move here. And I'm very glad we did, because London is amazing.
Yes.
That I can attest to. I've only been there twice now, once for work, once for pleasure. But yeah, really, really great city. Lots of history. So yeah, I need to make a mental note to now read the work or the doctor work. Oh God, I don't even know the words for it. Yeah, what did you do to get your doctor? I think, is that what you're saying? What your wife did?
Yes, she's now working with a publisher to publish it as a book, the sort of book that people would like to read, not a summary, 100,000 word summary of doctorate. So in a year or two, we'll have that as well. Yeah.
You just let me know. That sounds amazing. And yeah, going to move somewhere where you already know someone to get a foot in the door, help with local stuff, you get flat hunting and all that. So yeah, I can.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
I can see how that would be a big help. Yeah, absolutely. So, well, we already touched a bit up on the podcast. Eran and Yuri did, or still do. So, did that spawn from a gaming group, or is it some another animal altogether?
Yes. We basically, I know of you from way back, but Uri I only came to know around 2009 or 8, where I used to have a gaming shop, a store in Israel. I used to own one and work there for 2.5 years. And Uri just used to pass by and stop and talk to me on occasions. And eventually we started playing together. And then Aviv and I and Avshi and Yoav all went together, and before that, I should also mention we had another player before that. Went gathered together and played for a D&D 4 campaign all the way through to level 30 and finished it just moments before I moved away to London.
Yes.
I think. Yeah, we managed to do it, and it was brilliant. And I think during that time, both Uri and I learned to appreciate each other as creators and enthusiasts, because we both really, really like spreading the word about role-playing games and having more people play, more new people play, and better games. So it was kind of natural to still go and cooperate with him.
Cool. Yeah, I've been pestering Richard to actually do a podcast with me for quite some time now, but time constraints. So yeah, you putting out that much material, first in Hebrew, now in English. Is the Hebrew podcast, is that still going?
Oh no, we can. There's only 2 of us. No, we switched the whole production to English, the whole thing. We are now at episode 49 of the English podcast, finishing first year, and that's brilliant. I was so happy. Aviv and I had a booth table at Dragon Meet, London's biggest role-playing game convention. And about 4 people I counted, so not about 4 people came out and told me that they listened to us, which is great, because compared to our Israeli listenership in Hebrew, we were the kings. There was no other podcasts. Whenever a podcast came around, they sort of faded into the background. We stayed throughout the whole thing. We had an amazing, gigantic, in Israeli terms, crowdfunding campaign that worked really well and launched up to 4 players the webcomic. And we were a big thing. And when we moved to English, we thought, who knows of us? So who cares? Who wants to know what two people from nowhere say about some things? So it's very encouraging to see that there are people that are listening. Of course, we have some details from behind the scenes, some insights from Google and stuff like that, but it's nothing like actually hearing it from someone coming up to you and saying, this works, I like it, I like listening to you guys talk about stuff that matters to me.
Yeah,
Brilliant.
that also I can relate to, because when Eric put together the new crew for the Wild Die podcast, he specifically looked for people from other countries, from the UK, from Canada, in my case from Germany. Now they have Paris Conte from Australia, just to get that additional input, because people from different countries, they have different approaches to role playing games. They have different stories to tell. They have different games that are big in their home country, so that just brings a whole new flavor to every discussion. So I can absolutely see why your podcast wouldn't just be one new podcast in the big mass of podcasts that is out there, because you just bring a unique perspective to it.
If you ask me, it's a very good podcast and everyone should listen to it. Not only because of our perspective, but because we are also insightful men. But go and tell that to people people on the street, people on the internet. I mean, we haven't actually invested much in marketing at all. There's so much other things to do, and up to 4 players is so much more important. Sorry, Uri, but it is. So.
Yeah, well, you're doing a bit of marketing right now, because there's going to be, or if you're watching this right now, there are links to the podcast in the description below this video. So check it out. But first, please finish watching the video. So very kind of you. Okay, so well, that's a bit of a very interesting piece of bit of background. So well, let's get to the topic everyone's waiting for: Crystal Heart. So how did that start? Did you have a great idea for a table game and then thought, wow, this would actually make a great published setting? Or being that you have a professional illustrator, was it like, I want to do a setting, and then you just began play and testing and saw and to see where it all went? So how did it start?
So since we mentioned On the Shoulders of Dwarfs, the podcast, and Eran threw it out there that their crowdfunding campaign actually launched up to 4 players, let's start with that branch of the story. So they did their crowdfunding campaign, which was brilliant, and one of the stretch goals was, hey, Aviv and Eran are going to do a new webcomic about board games, because that's the subject that we decided would make a good subject for loads of jokes and colorful one joke strips and stuff like that. So that's what we decided to go with, and it worked. So we launched it. And speaking of translations, we actually, for the whole 100+ strips that we did for the first arc of up to 4 players, we actually translated each and every one to Hebrew as well. So there are 2 versions of every strip. And I think there's still
I would even go one step further and say we co-created it in Hebrew as well. I mean, even during the creation step, we had to consider the fact that it would be in another language.
Yeah, because it did originate from a crowdfunding for an Israeli podcast, so it was only fair.
Yeah.
But then after more than 100 strips, we kind of that road kind of ended for us, and we wanted to try something slightly different. So we took our 4 main characters, up to 4 players, and we wanted to have them play something else, specifically role-playing games. That's our main passion. Board games are awesome, and they're very colorful and fun, and there's loads of them. But what we love is role-playing games, and there are so many jokes and so many interesting things you can say about a role-playing game as well. And we had our 4 main characters, which was great, because we don't have to invent that now as well. We just need to figure out what they're playing. And years prior to that, probably like maybe 10 years before, a group of us friends, Eran and I, and 3 more of our Israeli friends, played a setting that we created from scratch together, where people had stones instead of hearts, and we were playing these agents of a secret, weird organization called Sin, and we looked for mysterious crystals around the world, and we could put them in our chest to get superpowers and to have our personality changed in all kinds of ways. And it sounds kind of familiar, I think. And that's something that Eran has been working on kind of behind the stage for years. And when we looked for a game for our players to play, he decided, hey, why not do this thing that we already have kind of in the works and somewhat established. So that's kind of the coming together of 2 branches of history that form Crystal Heart.
Wow, that is a lot of history behind
I
that.
know, right?
So you mentioned not to having to invent new people playing the game. So are all the people from the Crystal Heart webcomic actually real, or is only Eran real?
Eran is real. I'm real too. The 4 players are kind of, or they originated inspired by us 2 and our spouses.
Okay.
And obviously they weren't exact copies, and obviously in the years since we created them, they changed. But that was kind of the seed, the seed of reality that spawned these characters.
Cool. So who is Rafaela in real life, and is she as dangerous to be around as in the webcomic?
She's my wife, Dusty. And yes.
We should say she's not Rafaela, she's Lily.
She's Lily, yes.
There is a difference, but it's
it's subtle.
Subtle.
Yeah,
yes.
subtle.
No, she's brilliant. And actually, Dusty keeps claiming that it's really romantic of me to have a character based on her, despite the fact that I have characters based on all 4 of us, and despite the fact that Lily is,
Unique.
I'm not essentially. I don't think we show her in an especially positive light. She's just her own person. She knows what she wants, and she's trying to get it. And does really appreciates it. So awesome.
Yeah, I really like the character as both as the player and as the in-game character, because if you have a player like her, that's going to keep things very interesting. There's never the danger of a dull moment if you have a player like her who is not afraid to play a character like that.
Absolutely.
So, well, we've got Eran as a writer, we've got Aviv as a professional illustrator. So, are you kind of sectioning off the work? Eran does all the writing, and you just illustrate what he says should go in, or is there? Well, I know it's never that easy because a good illustrator always brings input. She brings her own ideas and personality into everything she touches. But is it like a 50-50, or is there a bit of a majority of work on one end of the spectrum for you 2 guys?
It's definitely the majority is on the art spectrum. I mean, on the art side, because there's so much more art to do than writing. That being said, Aviv is also way more involved in the writing than I assume most comic artists, because I think most comic artists just get a script, here, do this. This is not how we work almost at all. First of all, because we sit together and decide on the next story. We decided on the whole thing. Here's Crystal Heart. Here's what we're trying to say with it. Here's where it's going to end. Here's where it's going toward. I mean, the big picture. Then we sat and decide on, okay, here's this storyline. This is what is generally going to happen through it. And we sat and working together for like 2.5 hours. And then we have a basis skeleton for the storyline. Only then do I start working alone and create pages. Now, per page, I do I describe what's happening. I decide what generally is going to happen in this page. I describe the panels, what happens in each panel, and generally speaking, where they are and how things work. That's the storyboard, and I also do the dialogue. But then Aviv takes it and approves it. And she says, yes, okay, this I like what is happening in this page. Let's continue with this. And then she fixes all sorts of grammar errors that I have and stuff like that. And because she's brilliant with that as well. And she also has, opinions on what should wait. It doesn't end with a funny note, for example. Or she suggests, she doesn't suggest, actually, it even takes a step further. When she lays it out, she creates a basic penciling of the whole thing and sends it to me for approval. Almost 99% of the time I have nothing to add because we work very well together by now. And I sort of know what sort of style she likes and what sort of, she already mentioned the page will end with a joke enough times for me to know that page should end with a joke. And I get it, it's in here somewhere. And I think we both have the same visual storytelling style, so I almost never have nothing. I suggest some panel location, panel location.
Layout, sure, location's good.
Layout, sure, yeah. And then Aviv does something and sends it back, and I almost always say, yeah, okay, yes, this is how it should be. And then we continue on. That's basically, I think, how it works. But my work takes about, I would say, at most a fifth of Aviv's in hours, in literal time.
Yeah, that's the thing about writing and art. I think it's 50-50 in importance to the final product, but as far as the time that goes into it, the art just takes longer, and it's really annoying. But that's how it is.
So is it the same ratio with the RPG book for Crystal Hearts? Because there's a lot more text than art to be done. So I'm guessing that's if I had to take a guess, I would say it is switched around.
Not necessarily, because we are already planning. We've kickstarted it, of course, and we managed to reach a stretch goal of more art, which basically means that Aviv we managed to fund about 2 months of Aviv's time creating art for the book.
Wow.
And it is safe to say that, well, we already have about 40% of the book written because we had to play this something. So I've been writing it for the past year, just enough for us to do something with and to make sure that we have something to go with. Because if it was junk, we wouldn't have gone for the Kickstarter, obviously. But apparently it's not junk. So awesome. I need to add like 60% and then obviously re-edit and everything. And then it goes on through editor and then proofreader, etc. But my part of the job, I say, would be probably about as much. It's going to take about as much time as a baby is going to need.
But that's after you've been working on it for months.
Yes, I'm trying to judge. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not going to nail you to the wall for not giving me a number. Sure. It's just.
But just to make sure, I think it's going to work a lot. There's going to be a lot of new art. All the book is new art, basically. And though I don't remember how many new pieces, 80, something like that. And
wow,
that's a lot of work. So that's not all of them are, of course, pages. Yes, not comic pages. We're not going to do comics pages, but still 80 pieces of art. It's a lot of work. So probably it's going to stay about 50-50 work.
Yeah, I actually saw the announcement of the unlock of the additional art stretch goal, and that was right after I went through your Critical Role fan art portfolio, and I was like, yes, give me more. It looks so good. Because, the image you're seeing around us here was graciously supplied by Aviv, and I felt so bad having to butcher it with frames and cutting stuff out just so you could see us. I was very tempted just to cut out a few of the faces and just put us in there so you could see the whole page.
Oh, wow!
That is how much I like the art style of Crystal Heart and of the webcomic of up to 4 players.
There's actually a very good solution for that. You can just go to the Kickstarter and you can see the full illustration there. So yeah, do that. But thank you so much. That's really nice to hear.
a Kickstarter, you can also find the link down below in the comments, or if you're watching this video after the Kickstarter has ended, it's either going to be a link to the ended Kickstarter or to the page where you can buy the finished product. That's the problem with doing YouTube videos. You always need to plan for the present, the near future, and the far future. Yes. But I'm getting better. I think I'm getting better. So, there was one... I'm not sure if I'd call it a complaint, but there was one thing that crept up on Facebook where somebody took a look at the artwork and he said, wait, whoa, this looks like a great game for children. And I've read the webcomic and I read the starter of Crystal Heart, so I know it's not a game for children. It can be, but it isn't. So is the art style as it is now, is that just something that grew out of it starting as a webcomic, or did you create it with in mind to have it accessible by people of all ages, or was it just something that flowed naturally?
I think it definitely started because of the webcomic. First of all, it's my style. I mean, I don't think that if we'd have started, if we went for a setting book from the get-go without going through a webcomic first, I don't think I would have gone for gritty and black and white and gory and all that, because it's just not my style. I think it's not our style together as creators. But definitely a lot of that style was born through the webcomic. It was supposed to be somewhat whimsical. It was supposed to be fairly minimalistic or simplistic, enough so that I can draw a page every week. And we wanted it to be colorful and fun, because that's a big part of the setting. It doesn't mean it's just for kids. There are so many animated and colorful things that are definitely not meant just for kids. I mean, look at the whole world of anime, for example. Yeah. Some of it is geared towards children. Some of it is geared towards literally everyone. Everyone can enjoy it at some level. And some of it looks very colorful and friendly, but is actually very deep and serious and deals with, all kinds of issues. Yes, issues. And I think that also has gotten into Western animation as well, with new shows. She-Ra and Voltron are two that come to mind that are maybe geared towards children or teens or tweens, but so many adults find beautiful things in them, and they communicate like values. And
I want to add Avatar, The Last Airbender, of course, and Gravity Falls. And Steven Universe, all of which are inspirations for the art, but also for the concept of Crystal Heart. Cool. We want to have a cartoon-like place where many things can happen. It starts off very welcoming, but it can go some places if you want it.
Yeah, exactly. That's the point. If you want it. I mean, I think you can play a session or a campaign of Crystal Heart and have it very PG-13, friendly to 7 and 8-year-old children. Play it with your family, or you can take exactly the same setting and inject a lot more serious topics and drama and.
I think we showed some things that can happen in the world in the webcomic. I think the stories are, I hope, not superficial. There's something going on there. You can play it as superheroes shooting laser stuff. You can, but you can maybe go deeper if you want to. Not only because the world allows it, and one of the reasons we chose to have only humans and no other races is just for that.
Yeah,
because
especially
humans have enough happening.
With the last story arc in the Crystal Heart webcomic you finished, with the one about the manor, and I'm not going to spoil it for people who haven't read the webcomic yet. Do it; it's amazing. But that one has a lot of morality lessons in it, and it's not black and white. It starts out like that because they have their opinion and they think that's going to be our mission, and then everything changes, and it's lots of shades of gray, the good shades of gray, not that rubbish you're thinking of right now. Get your minds out of the gutter. And that alone is a very great example of what you just said. You can twist this set, not twist it, but fine tune that setting to whatever you want it to be. The example pre-generated characters you've released already, there's a woman in there who can make bubbles and throw them at people, which could be seen as a whimsical thing, but they do real damage. So how you handle that is up to you. But there's another character who literally turns into part werewolf and has claws as his hands when he attacks people, and has the berserk edge. So that could get very dark and bloody very, very quickly. So you, as with every setting, you need to adjust it to what your group is comfortable with and how you want your story to go. And just so for all you out there, yeah, the art style is friendly, it's open, it's bright, it's vibrant, but there are a lot of undertones in it, and you can define those for yourselves, as Aviv said. So it always means what you want it to mean. So just don't judge it from the look of that it could be a children's book, because as they say, it's not.
If someone is not willing to go a bit further and try to understand what is going on, okay, then we probably missed someone. I think that if someone is literally looking just at the cover of the book, literally the cover, and judge it literally by just the cover, then yes, they will probably have they might have no interest in going further, or saying, yes, this is for kids, because it looks very colorful and kid-friendly. If they even just turn around and look at the blurb at the back, they might see something a bit more than that, because even in our blurbs, we always tend to mention how this dichotomy between becoming an agent of sin, gaining power, but losing your freedom, and all sorts of themes, things that you can actually play with and around in an adult game. So it takes very little to. I won't even say go and read the webcomics. You should, but it takes some time. There's a lot of webcomics to read. But even reading the blurb, even if you're just willing to just check a little, then I think you could probably realize something else is going on.
Yeah, I'd say so, absolutely. Just from the little I know about it from reading the quick starter and everything. So, regarding the topic of art, there are going to be dozens of crystals in the book, if I remember correctly. So that means, Aviv, you have to draw dozens of different crystals, and Eran has to come up with mechanics for possibly dozens of crystals. No, Eran has to come up with dozens of crystals. Aviv, you possibly have to draw dozens of crystals.
We already have quite a lot of crystals from the playtest and other places, and we haven't released them all. We have a few. I'm happy to say that in our Discord group, people are coming up with more crystals every few days. Someone have an idea for a crystal, which I won't be using because it's theirs, and we're happy to do it for them, but I'm not taking their ideas. And anyway, most of them are not really what I'm aiming for in the crystals that I'm going to create. And I don't think Aviv is going to do all of them. I mean,
I mean, we'll see. We haven't decided exactly what's going to be in the book as far as all the art is concerned.
I mean, I know it because I'm going to take a lot of room that I need to write more.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the art is supposed to serve the book and serve the settings. So if it's cool and if it helps to see how the crystals look, yes, absolutely, I will draw them. But if it's just, okay, here's a bunch of illustrated crystals, but they just take away space from the actual, mechanics and stuff, then what's the point?
Yeah, absolutely. What is commonly known as, in your case, it would be crystal porn, just more crystals for the sake of crystals.
Yeah.
And the gear porn syndrome. And I'm very glad that is not a very big thing in Savage Worlds. It's one of the things I like about it.
Yes.
So your illustrations of crystals, do you come up with do you sometimes just go walk around and be like, oh, this shape in this context, that would make a great idea for a crystal, draw something up, and then phone up Eran and say, make a crystal for this. I have a sketch.
Actually, at least so far, it's been exactly the opposite, which is great because I love creating and drawing and designing things based on something that already exists. So Eran usually comes up with an idea for a crystal, and actually, mechanically, part of the blurb of text for every crystal includes its appearance. So Eran just comes up with a few keywords for describing that crystal, and that automatically gives me an idea of what it looks like. And for me, as an illustrator, that is so much easier than just coming up with something out of the blue.
Cool.
I don't always come up with ideas for crystals. Actually, a lot of the time, when I need something, like for example, for the playtest, or even during the when creating the starter set and stuff like that, I turn to Aviv in Hangouts and just write, Aviv, give me an idea for a crystal or something, and she comes up with like 3 way out there ideas, but one of them is awesome. So I take that one and run with that one. That's usually how it works.
Cool. So, well, on the topic of inspiration, in the quick start, you go over a quick history of the world, and then a bit of description about the different, well, countries, kind of, the 5 lands.
We call them lands, yeah, because that's the best description we can find.
Yeah, because not everything has a central government. The islands are a bit scattered of that, for example. So, is that something that you came up with all by yourself, or are you borrowing inspiration from real life existing countries or something?
Originally, we created them as distinct entities because it's a very anime thing to do, a very video game thing to do. We have 5 different locations, and each of them with distinct geographical features, etc. But then, when we sat down to create the world, there was a lot of work on the ethnicities themselves, the people. Who are they? What are they like? Why they are like that? And how is this interesting in an adventure? So we had to sit down and think, and we took inspiration totally from the real world, because there's so much real world to take inspiration from, and it will make it very easy for me when writing the book, because I can just go to Wikipedia and say, yes, let's see, Native American Hopi tribe. That's what they do. Yes, and I'll steal everything from there, and that's the book. Because basically speaking, we decided on a very vague. I won't say vague because, like, for example, the islands are Polynesians, but they're not. That's where we look for. Well, inspiration is the best word. That's where we look for inspiration, but we twist and turn and add so other things into it that I don't think it's really the same thing. I'll take, for example, Zingama, which is our land based on the Amazon. It's Brazil-like, huge jungle. Most everyone live around a single snaking river. It's really, really big. It's population-wise, they have like 1 million people, which is a lot, and way more than everyone else. And they are a nation. They see themselves as a nation. They have central government. They have bureaucracy. They have nobles. And they have all of this. And I really like the distinction between the cultural Zingamayan and the tribal Zingamayan. So I'm probably taking some inspiration from something Inkish or whatever, because Inca, Maya, whatever, they'll have probably pyramid-like things, but the Zingamayans themselves, the cultured one, are Americans. For all intents and purposes, they are US citizens living in the big cities, West Coast Americans, because that's awesome. I mean, that's probably the funnest thing to do with them. So we only go so far when looking for inspiration. It's really way more important to make sure that the cultures are interesting as a source for adventures. Because now we have a very a culture that thinks they are the best in the world, and the culture is amazing. They sell jeans for everyone to everyone else or stuff like that. And it's a line from Civilization 5 where cultural victory is imminent. Other people say, we are now buying your genes. That's in my mind, that's like, you're a cultural powerhouse. So having that and contrasted with the fact they live in a jungle and they have tribes and stuff like that, there's adventure. You can have some adventures somewhere in there, and that's why it exists the way it is. And we went through the same process for each of the 5 lands.
Cool. So, will the lands have massive information about them in the book, or is that going to leave rather broad? So as far as I understand it, the plot point campaign is going to focus on the works of the organization of Sin and their inner works and something. So, not sure how much you can and want to reveal at this point.
I'd love to reveal a lot.
So I from what I gathered this far is like that's going to be more like an organizational intrigue, and the lands are just going to be the framework for the adventures to play in, and they're not going to be touched directly by the plot point campaign.
Actually, the plot point campaign is going to center on the islands.
Oh.
It's going probably. I mean, everything is work in progress, but that's what I'm aiming for, and it's going to center on islanders and people outside of the organization, because I want to show a plot point campaign, a generic plot point campaign for the world. That's what I'm aiming for, not the campaign that will be the solution to everything that is happening in the world and finally uncover what Sin is all about. That is not what I'm going for in the book.
Okay.
The main reason is that's what we're doing in the webcomic. And I can't just do it again there. We'll have some ideas and suggestions for what is Sin all about, but it won't be the plot point campaign. It will be in the GM's part of the book where we say, okay, well, crystal forms. What is Sin actually trying to do? What are the secrets of this world and stuff like that? We'll have various suggestions because there's no one canonical answer, because the one canonical answer is the webcomic, and you can't get that one. That's the one we're doing. So you'll have to do something else. So here are a few suggestions that we think are awesome, and we would have done, haven't we done the webcomic? That being said, I would love to have someday in the future, after we finish the webcomic or expose some of the bigger secrets, the big Sin plot point campaign, maybe as an added product, something, a PDF in the future that I'll release or something like that. 2 years in the future at least. I mean, it's really way off. But I don't think that Sin should. It can be the source, but I would really love it if people go ahead and explore the lens and have Sin as a problem and an ally, and always in the background. And we're going to have a lot. I mean, there's a whole chapter dedicated to Sin, explaining what's going on, what sort of interesting complications you can have with it, the requisition system, which replaces money. If you want something, Sin will provide it, but you have to prove that you were a good agent and you've done good agenty things. So you gain requisition points and you spend requisition points to get stuff. And sometimes Sin might request your crystal because someone else somewhere else needs it. So you'll have to replace it. And all sorts of stuff. I mean, it's an optional rule because not all players like it. But if players do like it, then sure, we'll go with that. And Sin facilities that are filled with strange personnel and stuff. Sin is a tool to make sure that the GM has some power over the players. The GM always has power over the players, but in-world power over the players, allowing them to say, yeah, sure, the adventure is over there. That's where Sin sends you then. That's where the adventure is, for example. And in later levels, it becomes way more, I think, interesting. The dynamic, I don't know if we're getting into details, but the dynamic between the Sin and yourselves, the agents, can become more interesting. But I want you to go to the lands and play in them.
Yeah, of course, you created them. Why wouldn't you want people to go and explore them?
But regarding what you said, we will be telling very little about the lands. We won't be saying, for example, how many I don't know, politicians are in this and that land, and what's the biggest export? No one cares. We'll say everything interesting we can come up with. Interesting locations where crystals might be, interesting, unusual things that are relevant to the culture of this land that you can use in your game. For example, have an agent do a faux pas in the middle of a party or something like that. Things that can be awesome because most agents will not be from this land most of the time. And the agents are very cosmopolitan. Sin is a very cosmopolitan organization in a world that is generally xenophobic. And I want to use that. And also, each of the lands have a theme, the type of stories that we think should be told there. Bogovia is all about downer endings, like we've been doing in the webcomic. Each of the comics so far has ended with a, but did we win?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, but did we win? And Fjordstad is going to be about secrets and backstabbing and stuff like that. And each of the lands have a theme, and we want the adventures going on there to be about that theme because we think it's interesting and fun, and also providing these sort of expectations to the players. If the players know that in Bogovia things don't end well, that's, I think, a great way for them to go along with it. When you go to Bogovia and play a game, you know that it's not something gonna suck at the end. So you are, as a player, you might be looking for ways to make that happen. And when it does happen, you say, good, because you were waiting for it. And you felt, you know this is what it's supposed to be. It's dramatically satisfying.
And because you're only painting a broad theme, that I guess that makes Aviv's job a bit easier, because you get a framework you can work within, and where you know where you can get inspiration for how the art should probably look to emphasize the theme, but you're not getting nailed down by having to adhere to 4 million different details that are in the text and need to be in the art, because otherwise the fans are just going rabid.
Yeah, for sure. And every time I need to design a new location or a new character from a new place or anything like that, we usually sit down and have a chat about it. When I say sit down and have a chat, I mean usually hangouts. Just to, I'm trying to fish out everything I can from Eran's head to understand how he sees things. And then, I mean, there are many things that are important to me visually that he doesn't really think about, because he doesn't need to think about them to create the story or to create the setting. But if I need to draw it, it's actually really important. So that's where we create a bunch of things that sometimes are just background detail, but sometimes end up being relevant or main to this new location or to this new character that we created together.
Nice. So about the overall state of the world the people are going to live in. Well, there was this kind of big thing 800 years ago where the world ended. Meh. Ancient history. So, well, it's 800 years in the past. So for 800 years, people have been rebuilding. So what is the state of the world at the moment? Because the webcomic gives a good kind of impression. A Sin agent group gets a tank. So apparently they have some kind of combustion to run a motor. They have firearms. But they also have, well, it's, of course, it's not magic. It's the powers of the crystal, but I'm guessing those find a broad way to be applied in various ways of everyday life. So if that is even allowed, or am I misunderstanding here? Are Sin the only ones who are able to use, or are Sin the only ones allowed to use the crystals?
Allowed by whom? Sin are the only ones that have found a way to use crystals in a reliable, reproducible way. That is relatively safe. That doesn't mean that people are not using crystals. Like, for example, in the first adventure that we released for free on our web, on the Kickstarter, Mixed Heritage, you have people that are using a crystal. They don't know that they use a crystal, but it's an integral part of the heritage. It's mixed, but it's an integral part of the heritage, and that's because there's a crystal there. A crystal creates an ecosystem around it, and that ecosystem can have people in it. If, for example, you have a crystal in the well in your village, and that crystal makes I don't know, make everyone contaminated in some way, sick. But they are themselves immune to this sickness. They just spread it out. You might have a village that is filled with people that are very xenophobic and out there in the mountains, and no one comes close. But they themselves are never get sick from anything, whatever, anywhere. And so maybe it's this miraculous village that if you come there, you'll get sick, but they themselves not get sick, and there's this legend around it or whatever. The people there might not know they have a crystal in their well. They don't realize that they are drinking water contaminated by a crystal. But it doesn't matter in our level, the creator level. On our level, it basically means the crystals are an excuse to have fun things happening all around. And the state of the world, 800 years is a specific time. I don't like 2,000 years. It's 5,000 years in the past. No. It happened around 800 years. It's before remembered history, but it's not that far away. And in 800 years, we will rediscover coal and what to do with it. And we will rediscover all sorts of interesting things, even though we have no idea what happened before. And the bygone age is really weird and strange. We can use it as an excuse for all sorts of interesting, unusual things that are not crystals. That's the only excuse you have for things that are not crystals. That also means that we are currently mid-shift. It's something I really like in all worlds, and I like it in Avatar as well. We are currently shifting. We're not in a status. It's not like Bogovia is now. It's the land of vaguely East European darkness sort of mindset, and that's what they are, and that's what they've always been. No, they haven't always been this. Up until 300 years ago, there was something else, and in 50 years, there will be something else again, because the world changes. So what we will give is a snapshot of what happened right now, what is right now the state, and explain where all of the powder kegs you can have because of enlightenment and progress. I mean, when you create the second adventure we're going to release is all about the newspaper, the printing press making its way to Bogovia. It's a thing that one of the cities in Fjordstad have been using for years, because for them it's like, but it's now only now it gets to Bogovia. And how is that going to change Bogovia, or specifically Hofsburg? I don't remember the name of the city. It's strange. It's a funny name because I don't know how it's going to change. I mean, go ahead and play that. That's why it's there, basically.
Yeah, that's going to, if you just take our real world as a comparison, that's going to change a lot. Yeah. When printing suddenly became available for everyone, that changed everything. The whole power structure toppled. So that's probably going to be a big thing, depending on how people want to play it.
Called Scene. And now there's an organization called Scene, which is, again, a relatively new thing. It's only been around for like 30 years, like a generation. And so now it's like the second or maybe third generation of agents that are going around. So people have some appreciation or some assessment of what Scene is, people around the world. But many of them, like, for example, already have already been keeping their crystal away from Scene for years and have their techniques of how to do so. And others have only been seeing them for the first time. And when Scene comes around to kidnap them, grab away their crystal, they will be changed forever. I don't know. That's the point. I don't know. There are many things that can happen. Go ahead and play them. That's what we're aiming for.
So coming back to my original question as to the state of the world and in regards to technology and everything, well, yes. We have tanks, we have combustion, we have firearms. In one of the intro adventures you published, there is a self-flying plane with a computer in it. So that's a pretty broad range of things that can exist there.
Okay. we aim, of course, to explain it in the book, but generally speaking, Scene has the best technology. Okay, Scene they have a flying castle, they have planes, they have these tanks, they have probably mass-produced rifles, not so much mass-produced, but a lot of rifles and stuff like that. They are brilliant, everyone loves them. they don't sell any of this. They don't use any of this except on their own agents. You can also find tons of interesting technology in Fjordstad, because there are 11 city-states, each of them with its own speciality for a specific branch of science. And they have, like, in the city of biochemistry, they probably have clones.
Mm-hmm.
In the city of optics, they probably have lasers, stuff like that. And however, all of these are non-reproducibles. There's this person that created a technique for creating clones, and when this person dies, it probably dies with them. Or maybe not, maybe someone else takes it and then changes it so much that the point is, in 50 or 100 years, maybe we'll see capitalism at work, and we'll see actual cities actually creating actual stuff. But now it's mad engineers creating Renaissance-like inventions, very high-tech inventions, but only for their own, using codes to keep it from others. And the people in charge have no interest of seeing this coming to anyone else except themselves.
Yeah.
They only use it to fight each other. So,
and you never
that's
know
the
when
highest level of technology.
You never know when it's still going to blow up in your face.
Oh, it's always going to blow up in your face. It will bad science and arcade background. So yeah.
Cool. So that actually answers the question I was going to ask next. So that is handled via the arcane background mad science. So since crystals give you powers, and as far as I can tell, you said there is no magic as we understand it in the world. It's all powered by the crystals. So there are no other arcane backgrounds. It's just mad science because of those new inventions that don't really have the kinks worked out of quite yet.
Exactly, and mad science is banned as an edge from players. Players are agents of sin. They are not inventors. You're not sent into this world to invent new stuff and have amazing technologies. You're sent in the world to, most of the time, face amazing technologies in some way as an agent of sin. You are only supposed to have your crystal. That being said, each group can do whatever they want, and if they want to add magic, they can. But we claim that all crystals are science. I mean, they are natural. They are simply nature. They are unknown and not yet understood parts of nature, but they are all in some way work as part of nature. So theoretically speaking, science can figure them out someday.
Yeah, just kind of like if magnets would naturally grow in the wild, and people would notice, oh, if I go too close to this with my sword, I get pulled towards it. So how does that force actually work? How can we harness it? So that's a kind of a primitive but analogy to how crystals work.
And yes, which is one of the reasons people are so afraid of sin, because it seems like they sort of got it. Why most people see crystals as these strange, dangerous parts of nature seem to know how magnets work, and that's dangerous if no one else knows how to.
That is true. So, well, the power of the crystals. Will you have edges to upgrade your agents in regards to the crystals? How do I phrase this? Do you have to slot another crystal to actually expand on what powers you have, or will there be edges to upgrade a crystal you've already slotted so you don't have to change crystals that much?
So that's funny, because originally our idea was that people switch crystals a lot. It's part of the fun. You have new sets of crystals, new set of powers, and a new hindrance, which is fun. But during playtest, we discovered many people enjoy having this crystal, and they want to have this crystal and keep this crystal. Now, they might change their mind when they get a new one, which is awesome. But until then, and maybe forever, they want to build a character around this crystal. So sure, if that's a viable way to play it, and we created an edge that rewards you for staying with a single crystal. It makes it easier for you to discover new powers with it and to keep them, and which is a thing that is basically okay. each crystal has several powers, and these are the powers of the crystal. Create a new power, one use power that is with the theme of the crystal. That's very much like the superpowers in the Superpowers Companion. This edge allows you to add new powers to the crystal that you already have. It's completely useless with any other crystal, but with this one, you will be really good with using this crystal, and you have new abilities, etc. We also created an edge for the exact opposite. If you are the sort of person that views crystals as tools, not as part of your personality, and you like carry 2 or 3 on you each time, and you can just go and just switch between them mid-combat, which is insanely dangerous most of the time because it's your heart, so you stop breathing while you switch them around. Most people don't do it to themselves. Other agents do it to them. But you are a crystal switching machine. You're really good at switching them. The chances that something bad happens to you are really low, and you will never specialize in a specific one, but you are also requisitioned more crystals than other players. You can have more and use more.
Cool. So as you already touched on it, if you take out a crystal, well, that is really bad for you. I stumbled across a mechanic that's not explained yet in one of the introductory adventures, and that is crystal disruption. What is that?
Where is it mentioned?
I don't remember exactly. I think it's the... I don't think I can even say it without spoiling one of the adventures.
There's okay, so is it thing to do with the shard? Anyway, there's this thing. Crystals have a theme, and we can look at it as a sort of energy. When you have it in you, you are sort of radiating this energy. And also it is your heart. Now, when you roll Snake Eyes, double one, critical failure as it's called in Adventure Edition, you desync, which means the crystal stops working for you as a heart. So you're going to die unless someone, bangs on it several times to make it, or switch the key or something to make it restart with a healing check. But also crystals have, because of this energy, because while they're in you, they sort of this resonance, they resonate against any other crystal. So, for example, if you want to grab a crystal with your bare hands while having a crystal inside of you, they are going to dislike it. They don't like being so close to each other, and there's a chance you'll desync just by grabbing another crystal. Think of it like a vibration running up your arm, up to your heart, and stopping it, or something like that. And that's true with shards, for example, which is the excuse we give for regular people to have powers. We say that some crystals broke, and now there are only shards, and they have only a single power, and it's on maximum, and everyone can use it, except for Agents of Sin, because if they try to use it, it's like using a crystal while having a crystal. They resonate against each other, and you will desync. So probably don't do it.
Yeah, sounds like using things that would give you a heart attack sounds like a bad idea.
I mean, it's power at a cost. It's really important that you have power at a cost in all around Crystal Heart, and I think in game design at all, a general.
Yeah, there should be a kind of balance to it. I mean, in Savage Worlds, that is usually handled with what rank is the requirement, and you have to invest in advancement to get it, or multiple advances if it's an edge that requires another edge before it. So yeah, with the crystals, that has also it also comes with the cost of not being able to use other crystals, but you get a hindrance from a crystal. I think always, or is that just for the high powered?
Always, but high powered will have more intense, more powerful hindrances in a way. We uploaded, you can download it from the Kickstarter page again, an example for 2 heroic agents, both of them using very powerful crystals, and they have, them at least, is completely overtaken by this crystal. The crystal she has, she has become a different because of it.
Yeah, I think I know which character you're talking about. Yep. Cool. So, well, speaking of crystals, that's on that topic. There are feral crystals, and that's going to be a big part of what Sin agents are going to do. They're going to go out and, well, rescue more secure feral crystals. So could you walk us through the process of what they have to do to actually secure a feral crystal?
Yeah, but I've talked enough, so Aviv is now.
So I think it's actually part of the Sin manual, what you need to do when you encounter a feral crystal. So feral crystal is what we mentioned, what Eran mentioned before. Whenever a crystal is in the wild, it affects the environment, the ecosystem around it. And it can be as mild as creating a tree that gives fruit with memories of dead villagers, for example. Just throwing out there this example from one of the adventures that we mentioned. Or it can be something like there's a river of lava in the middle of the ocean because a lava crystal is buried under it, or something like that. And usually when agents arrive at the scene, not the sin, the first thing they need to do is to somehow subdue the effects of the crystal. So if, for example, the scene is in a jungle and all the vines are being crazy because of the crystal buried somewhere there that makes them go dancy or just behave like snakes or something, then usually the agents would first combat or calm down or dance with the vines to take control of that situation, and then they can approach the crystal itself and capture it in one of their containers. Each agent comes with they walks around with an extra container for a crystal that contains a special gel that keeps the crystal in place and unharmed, and also lets it yes, exactly, subdues all its effects and make sure that it's just a piece of shiny thing until an agent takes that container, puts it in their chest, and now they can experience the full effects of that crystal.
So technically you could go out, subdue a feral crystal, put it in the tank, and then slot it immediately.
Yes, and you should. It's fun.
Oh god, that is amazing, because I think there is a knowledge skill regarding to crystals, knowledge crystal, which can use to identify a crystal, if I'm correct.
Exactly, and the other way to identify the powers is to try them out and see what happens, which is the less safe way of discovering what crystal is about.
Yeah, but I can see that as an appeal to a certain type of player. They were like, okay, we spent the last hour beating this thing into submission, so it's really powerful. Yeah, I'm going to slot it.
Yeah. Sure. I mean, absolutely. And the fact that each crystal comes with several different powers and a theme and a hindrance or a disposition that affect your personality, and you don't know any of that, and you discover it as you play, the GM can choose to sprinkle that information however they choose. And that is really exciting. And not to spoil too much, we have a story arc that kind of follows that currently in the current chapter of the webcomic.
Yeah, there's a new crystal in play. That was very fun to watch, seeing her trying to come to terms with her new crystal. That was really cool. So, well, I think we've covered just about everything. Wow. Okay, so as I've said before, if you are watching this very close to its release date, the campaign for the Kickstarter of Crystal Heart is still ongoing. Link in the description if you're going to catch it later. Link to the finished description, maybe a pre-order page, or where you can actually get the setting, also down in the description. There are going to be links for the webcomic, for the Kickstarter campaign, for the Quick Start, a link to the podcast. Aviv, I don't know if you have a portfolio or a page or something.
Yep, it's avivor.com, and I'll give it to you to put down there as well.
Yay! More stuff. All right, I love linking to cool people. So, anything else you want to plug while you're here on these broad interwebs?
I just want to say thank you
Yeah.
to Amit Moshe, our producer, who is the man behind City of Mist, the role-playing game, which I'm the editor of, and that's where we met. We met through my podcast, where he came to complain about not enough scenic moments in games or something like that. I think cinematography. He wanted to complain about that, and then we met. And now I'm the editor for City of Mist, and now he's our producer. So that's the only lesson is go ahead and create the podcast about role playing games. I think I don't know, maybe. And he's doing a marvelous job with the Kickstarter. All three of us are doing a marvelous job with the Kickstarter, but he's not here, so I should say that he's really. I mean, I don't know. We couldn't have done it without him. That's.
Yeah. I mean, we're both creative people, and we're good at that. But numbers and planning things and project management, it's very much above our heads. And Amit has been amazing with that.
Yes, I would also like to thank the contributors for our PDFs that we've already released, and hopefully we'll release in the future as well, maybe even after the Kickstarter, because we've had some brilliant pitches, and I would love to see more people write more stuff, because currently I'm the only writer for City of Mist, for Crystal Hearts, and that's nice. I mean, I'm obviously really good at this, but maybe we should have some more voices. So I'm always open for more pitches for one-shots. And we are hoping to find a way to fund them, their creation in the future, beyond the Kickstarter.
Cool. All right, so thank you guys so much for being here with me. It's been, wow, this has been a wild ride, and well, a wild ride on the back of a plant snake. Yeah, that's a strange analogy. But yeah, that was really great. Thank you so much for joining me. And well, that just leaves me to say, for Eran and Aviv, I was your host, Manuel, and until the next video, stay savage. Bye.